Welcome to my predicament. I was in my lawyer's office discussing settlement proposals when my phone vibrated. A message from my cousin. Dude, your wife has publicly posted our prenuptial agreement on Instagram. I felt a sinking feeling before even checking the app, and there it was, multiple pages of our prenup agreement, shared as a series of posts with the caption. Upon discovering how romantic our wedding truly was, according to my wife's social media post, face with tears of joy. Thousands of likes hinted at toxic masculinity, red flags associated with prenuptial agreements, and comments branded me as controlling, insecure, a trust fund baby fearful of strong women. My marriage had become viral content, and I was labeled the antagonist. I should have anticipated this turn of events. The warning signs were present from the start, but I was blinded by love, having met my wife at a charity gala 3 years ago. Gabrielle exuded an alluring charm, drawing eyes wherever she went. She oversaw a successful marketing firm and possessed an innate charisma that drew people towards her. I managed a diverse real estate portfolio inherited from my grandfather, properties spread across 3 states providing consistent revenue. Nothing extravagant but reliable, a legacy that I was taught to preserve. After 18 months of courting, Julian Torres, my attorney who also handled my grandfather's estate, advocated for a prenuptial agreement. Your assets have roots dating back decades, he explained. This safeguards the legacy your family has built. Gabrielle agreed without delay, signing with ease. I'm marrying you, not your wealth, she said, chuckling as she signed her name. I found no issue in this arrangement. I trusted her sincerity. The wedding was intimate and elegant, a small affair with only close friends and relatives, as we both desired. Or so I assumed. Reflecting on the past, I recall Gabrielle's constant use of her phone during various moments, countless candid shots taken by her friends, and frequent checks on social media engagement at our reception. Initially, I found it endearing, believing she was promoting herself even amidst our wedding festivities, demonstrating ambition. However, 2 weeks post-honeymoon, an Instagram post went live, which initially prompted laughter but soon turned into concerns. Friends inquired if I was comfortable with her publicly disclosing private matters. Business partners subtly hinted at a need for boundary discussions. Even my mother, expressing disapproval in her tone, said she had made our personal matters public entertainment. She needed to be addressed, yet when I broached the subject with Gabrielle later that day, she was quick to defend herself. It's my life too, she asserted. I have the right to share my own experiences. You can't control my social media. This wasn't your document to share, I stated gently. My financial data is within it, and your attorney shares her worries. Sighing, she expressed her disapproval. Clearly, Julian was upset, likely wanting to maintain the family's hidden secrets. I can understand why it might have hurt when I signed a prenup, but I have every reason to discuss that. The discussion concluded there, and she spent the night in the guest room. By morning, her Instagram stories depicted her at brunch with friends, carefree and unfazed. Her caption read, "Surrounding myself with people who don't view love as a business deal." Essentially, I chose to move on. What else could I do? We were newlyweds. I thought it was a temporary impulse, something we would laugh about later, but the posts persisted. Over the following 6 months, Gabrielle's social media presence flourished. She rebranded herself as an influencer promoting lifestyle, having survived marriage to a man fixated on asset protection. She did not explicitly mention me, but her intentions were clear to anyone who kept up with her. She posted emotional videos, lamenting about feeling like a gold digger in our marriage and striving for respect daily. Her follower count skyrocketed, and brands began reaching out for collaborations. She was capitalizing on our marriage, particularly profiting from portraying me as the antagonist in her tale, while our actual marriage deteriorated. She attended late-night networking events that she never extended invitations for, and when I inquired about her business, she grew evasive. "You wouldn't comprehend the creative industry," she'd say with a wave of dismissiveness. "It's not like managing buildings your grandfather acquired half a century ago, which hurt more than expected." I'd labored to preserve and grow our family's portfolio, but to Gabrielle, it seemed to hold no value as genuine work because I inherited the foundation. Then arrived the night that marked a turning point. Returned home unexpectedly from a property appraisal to discover Gabrielle and her business partner Colton Hayes at our dining table. They were huddled over a laptop, giggling about something on the screen, half-empty wine glasses between them. Upon my entry, they leapt apart as if guilty teenagers caught in an embrace. "Hello," Gabrielle said brightly. "We were just analyzing campaign data." Colton hastily gathered his belongings. "I should depart now, running late." He avoided eye contact as he passed me by. After he left, I posed a question I'd been evading for months. Are you involved romantically with him? Gabrielle's expression turned frosty. Are you truly accusing me of infidelity at this moment after making me feel like a call girl with your prenuptial suspicion for over half a year? I was simply asking a straightforward question. The answer is no. But the fact that you'd even ask suggests all my online concerns were justified. You don't trust me, never have. The prenuptial agreement wasn't about safeguarding your family's wealth. It was a means to establish my position. She stormed upstairs, leaving me standing solitarily. In our dining room, I contemplated the wine glasses, questioning my sanity. However, Julian's words from years past reverberated within me. Rely on your instincts. Intuition serves a purpose. The following day, I enlisted the services of a private investigator, an action that filled me with unease. It felt like conceding defeat and validating the controlling, paranoid husband image Gabrielle projected online. Yet I required the truth. If I was mistaken, I vowed to make amends and rebuild trust. If I was correct, then at least I'd be informed. The Pie's initial findings were disclosed 2 weeks later. Gabrielle and Colton had been involved in an affair for a minimum of 8 months, possibly dating back to before our wedding. They arranged meetings at hotels under assumed identities, were spotted having dinner together at restaurants distant from the city, where they believed they wouldn't be recognized. The Pie recorded 17 distinct encounters with timestamps and locations, but that wasn't the most troubling aspect. The most distressing part was the financial trail. I hadn't realized that 6 months into our marriage, Gabrielle had reorganized her business. She established a new LLC jointly owned with Colton and started channeling our household funds into this enterprise. Money that I was transferring to our shared account for mutual expenses was being diverted towards this venture instead. In the span of 6 months, she transferred almost $80,000. When I presented Julian with the evidence, he paled. This breaches at least 4 clauses in your prenuptial agreement, he stated, scattering the documents across his desk. If we can prove instances of commingling assets, fraudulent transfers, misrepresentation of financial dependence, and an affair started before the marriage, triggering the infidelity clause, it implies she forfeits everything she gained during the marriage, not just alimony. The prenuptial agreement includes penalty clauses that activate upon fraud or infidelity commitment. This means she'd have to return what you contributed towards household expenses, surrender assets bought with joint funds, and be liable for your legal fees, as stated in page 12, section 7 of the signed document, which she also posted online. His smile grew wider as the irony became apparent. For a month, I collected evidence, and Julian employed a forensic accountant to trace each fraudulent transaction. The pastry offered comprehensive records of the incident, encompassing hotel bills that Gabrielle had billed to a credit card linked to our shared account. Essentially, she utilized my funds to sustain her affair. The most incriminating evidence were the text messages. The pastry obtained them through legal discovery following the submission of our initial divorce documents. Gabrielle and Colton had been unusually reckless, discussing not just their affair but their long-term schemes. Plans that aimed at draining my accounts, utilizing my resources to build their business, and eventually divorcing me once they'd extracted the maximum benefit. A text from Gabrielle to Colton, sent 3 weeks after our wedding, read, "She even thinks she loves him, faced with tears of joy, I just need to remain patient. Another year or 2 and we'll have enough to start properly. Then I'm gone." Another from Colton to Gabrielle, "The prenuptial agreement you posted was brilliant. Now everyone sees him as the villain. When you leave, you'll be portrayed as the victim. He'll be ruined and you'll emerge victorious, having survived a poisonous marriage." They had orchestrated it all, the social media campaign, the victimhood narrative, the financial deceit. To her, our marriage was merely a fabrication for content. I was but a character in her story, the eventual antagonist she would flee from. The divorce hearing was set for a Friday morning in late October. Gabrielle entered immaculately dressed, playing the part of the wronged wife flawlessly. She was accompanied by 2 friends, whom I recognized from her Instagram, and who seemed to have been briefed on their roles. One clung to her in support, while the other discreetly took photos, likely for immediate sharing on social media. Colton remained in the back row, his audacity still astonishing. Judge Whitfield, a no-nonsense woman in her late 50s with a reputation for intolerance of dramatics, quietly examined our case file for several minutes before looking up. "Mr. Addressing counsel," she said, "Tours. The motion to enforce penalty clauses of the prenuptial agreement has been filed. Proceed." Julian rose, and Gabrielle's expression remained unchanged, oblivious to the impending revelations. With confidence bordering on nonchalance, she looked at the judge. "Your Honor," Julian started, My client entered into marriage in good faith with Ms. Gabrielle Winters. The prenuptial agreement was voluntarily signed by both parties to safeguard premarital assets and set financial boundaries. However, Ms. Winters breached multiple provisions of this contract through intentional deception, infidelity, and misuse of funds. Brennan, her attorney, a young man who presumably anticipated an amicable settlement, stood up. "Your Honor," he began, but was interrupted by Judge Whitfield. "Mr. Kellerman, sit down. You'll have your chance to respond." "Continue, Mr. Torres." Julian provided the evidence systematically. First, the predicament, hotel invoices, photos, meticulous records from the pie left Gabrielle looking self-assured, then pasty, then fiery red. Her friends ceased taking pictures, followed by a case of financial fraud. The forensic accountant's report, revealing precisely how funds were transferred, and where they ultimately landed, $83,000 channeled to an LLC co-owned by Gabrielle and her affair partner. "Your Honor," Julian stated calmly, "my client's money was used to finance both the affair and an illicit business venture. At the same time, she ran a public social media campaign portraying my client as controlling and financially abusive. She misused the very document meant to protect them, turning it into entertainment while breaching almost every clause within it." Judge Whitfield turned to Gabrielle. "Ms. Winters, do you have a reply?" Gabrielle hesitated before speaking, her voice trembling. "Your Honor, the money was for our household expenses. It was our joint account." Judge Whitfield asked bluntly, "Did you have the authority to transfer your business to a company co-owned with your affair partner without informing your husband? Did you disclose your affair with Mr. Hayes to your husband before, during, and after your wedding ceremony? Your attorney wishes to consult." The judge denied this request, stating, "I've seen enough. You entered into a legally binding prenuptial agreement that detailed penalties for fraud and infidelity. You violated this agreement by committing both acts, extensively and intentionally, while also publicly humiliating your husband on social media. You've pretended to be a victim, but in reality, you have been the one actively causing harm." The judge allowed a moment of silence before continuing. "The penalty clauses of the agreement are now enforced in full. When you are required to repay every dollar transferred to your LLC, amounting to $83,400, you must surrender any assets bought with shared funds during the marriage, including the vehicle currently in your name. You will pay Mr. Torres full legal fees, currently at $32,000, and renounce all rights to alimony or spousal support. 2. Moreover, I am ordering you to remove all social media posts mentioning your husband, the prenuptial agreement, or your marriage. You will post a public rectification stating that your claims of your husband's financial abuse were false. Non-compliance within 72 hours will result in further penalties." 3. Gabrielle appeared stunned. She clung to the table for support. However, the judge was not done. "Gabrielle," he continued, "your entire platform is built on lies and defamation. 4. You owe every dollar transferred to your LLC, $83,400. You must relinquish any assets bought with joint funds during the marriage, including the vehicle registered in your name. You will cover Mr. Torres' legal fees in full, currently at $32,000, and you forsake all claims to alimony or spousal support. 5. Additionally, I am instructing you to remove all social media posts referencing your husband, the prenuptial agreement, or your marriage. You will post a public correction stating that your characterization of your husband as financially abusive was false. Failure to do so within 72 hours will result in additional penalties." 6. Gabrielle looked dazed. She grasped the table for support, but the judge wasn't done yet. "Gabrielle," he said, "your entire platform is based on lies and defamation. 7. You are required to pay back every cent transferred to your LLC, $83,400. You must relinquish any assets bought with joint funds during the marriage, including the vehicle registered in your name. You will settle Mr. Torres' legal fees in full, currently at $32,000, and you waive all rights to alimony or spousal support. 8. Furthermore, I order you to delete all social media posts that mention your husband, the prenuptial agreement, or your marriage. You will post a public correction stating that your accusations of financial abuse against your husband were false. Failure to comply within 72 hours will result in further penalties." 9. Gabrielle seemed bewildered. She held onto the table for support. However, the judge was not finished speaking. "Gabrielle," he said, "your entire platform is built on lies and defamation. The text has been paraphrased in each of the options provided above, preserving the full meaning and approximate length. Torres intends to file a civil lawsuit for harm to his reputation. The courtroom emptied gradually. Gabrielle departed accompanied by her friends who seemed disinterested in capturing photos. Colton had vanished at some point during the presentation of evidence. Brennan, her lawyer, looked stunned. Julian gathered his briefcase composedly. "It went better than anticipated," he remarked. I merely nodded. I didn't feel victorious. I felt exhausted. "She will adhere to the social media mandate," Julian continued. "The other option is contempt charges, and she's intelligent enough to understand that. Within a week, her followers will see the truth. Some won't react, they're too engrossed in the narrative, but many will, and the brands she collaborates with, they'll sever ties as soon as this becomes public." He was correct. 3 days later, Gabrielle uploaded her court-ordered correction. It was concise and devoid of her typical charm. "I was compelled by the court to correct my previous statements concerning my ex-husband and our prenuptial agreement, which were untrue. I express my regret for any damage inflicted. The comments section was merciless. Those who had backed her felt deceived. Evidence of her old posts, the ones ridiculing me and feigning victimhood, were shared alongside the court's verdict, now part of public record. In just 2 weeks, her follower count decreased by 40%. Some partnerships dissolved. The latest information I received is that she relocated to a different state and erased all traces of her social media presence. In my case, I retained the properties, carried on maintaining my grandfather's legacy, and eventually started dating again, carefully with boundaries set from the beginning. I discovered that self-protection isn't paranoid or harmful. It's essential. And I learned that documents, even those ridiculed online, hold power. Gabrielle believed she was portraying me as a villain. Gabrielle inadvertently documented her future breach of agreement, making publicly available every term she agreed upon and each penalty she invoked. Julian's assessment proved accurate, and the poignant irony lay in how the tools employed against him ended up serving justice. Gabrielle intended the prenup to symbolize my control and suspicion. Instead, it became the legal mechanism of her own demise. Now, I no longer monitor her social media nor ponder her actions or remorse. That phase has concluded, finalized by a court ruling and sequentially activated penalty clauses. The prenuptial agreement safeguarded me, fulfilling its intended purpose, and the internet maintains an indelible memory.